Assume that we're live,
We are live.
even though this doesn't say we are. Okay, cool.
That's the delay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little strange. Okay, well, if you were watching that, pardon that, and I see we're also in the red here. So, welcome to Inner Reconciliation Live. This is a chance to talk with us. We said that it was going to be about money today. If you have something pressing on your mind and it's not related to that in any way, by all means, feel free to ask it. We just sort of set that as a tone because I just did a call, what was it, maybe 2, 3 days ago on the subject because we get a lot of questions, we get a lot of emails, and that's a big motivating factor for why a lot of people get into this stuff in the first place.
Yep.
So we thought we'd leave the door open for that as far as answering questions. If you haven't seen that particular class I did, it's just on the channel. You don't have to opt in or do anything. It's just a video on the YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, and it's a lot of exercises in it. There's a lot of things you can revisit, and the main point of it was to kind of give you something that you can consistently do. I think that's one of the things that comes up a lot with this is it's like we try to just do this some kind of process once, or we participate in some kind of live call or one class once, and if you start to understand what this is, that makes about as much sense as taking one class on piano playing.
Yeah. We're going to the gym once.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes these classes are it's almost more like going to a personal trainer's demonstration once.
Yeah.
It's not even necessarily you doing that much exercise as much as downloading the idea, getting used to what this feels like, which is really the kind of the prerequisite for you to go to the gym every day, as opposed to the thing that just takes care of it. Now, this could be a lot more interesting and fun than some types of exercise for some people. So, you want to be careful not to turn it into this drudging kind of task.
Oh, God, no.
It's actually quite enjoyable, but I think that analogy is important. Oh, somebody said I've listened to the Money vid at least 4 times already. Well, thanks.
Very good.
Wow. Well, I'm glad it was helpful for you. Glad to hear that.
And I will be doing a class on it at the end of the month.
For sure. And I'm probably going to do another one of those free ones soon.
It's important. It's just an important subject to everybody, especially these days. There's a lot of insecurity, and people simply don't know what's happening. It's not as stable a time as when I grew up. And so it's an important subject. We'll cover it a lot then because it's important to people and to our students.
And keeping with that analogy, it's not a problem to do it more than once. I kind of am intentionally trying to get away from this mentality of you just do these things, you watch these videos for any teacher. I mean, you don't watch Muji once and then go, "Oh, I understand
Got
this."
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them, including us, he's saying the same basic thing over and over to the point where he even comments on it. Like, like I'm saying the same thing. Because it's not about that. It's not about new information and getting new cool tricks and complex new ways of working with things. It's about the reminder. It's about being in the space with other people, getting in touch with that zone, and making a habit out of it, making a positive habit.
That is so important because maybe you've done it. I have, and I know a lot of people who have, who've kind of gone. It almost becomes like entertainment. You're always seeking out the latest thing that you can try out. If you find one thing that really turns into a practice that can maintain your energy and your devotion, just do that, right? When it runs its course, when it runs out and you just can't find any inspiration in it, then do something else. But you can become a perpetual seeker, a perpetual self-help. I call it the self-help treadmill. You can end up on that treadmill and never get anywhere because it's got to sink in. They say if you want to find water, it's better to dig one hole 100 feet deep than 10 holes 10 feet deep because you don't know how far down you're going to get before you really strike, where you really hit the water. So I really caution people about that. Most of the people say they've watched my videos and they've taken my classes multiple times because it just gets deeper every time because it's not head learning. You're not trying to learn anything. I bet you already know everything you're ever going to need to know. There was a famous book written, right? Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. It's true. It's actually true. But it doesn't sink in. It's got to sink in. It's got to go from your head to that knowledge into your heart, where it's like a felt truth, and then eventually into your life, so it's a lived truth. So you're actually walking your path. You're actually walking the truth that you come to know. It starts with the head. We all get information initially from the environment. We pick up, that looks good. We get an interest in it. If that interest grows, it starts to affect the heart. It's like, a lover, right? And then eventually it just kind of merges into your life. So this is the kind of knowledge we really seek to give. It's a knowledge that leads to freedom. It's a knowledge. It's a kind of knowing that's far more intimate. The way you know your hand, right? Hand doesn't have a name. Doesn't you don't describe it. You just well, there it is. You know it intimately. And so I really encourage people, even with money, with a subject that seems to be as difficult and has as many conflicting thoughts and ideas about it, get to know it intimately.
So there's increasing number of people here, so please say hello. And if you have a second, hey, Brian says hello. Cool.
Also, tell us where you are.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm finding that like 80% of the people are outside of the U.S., which I think is wonderful.
And also let us know if the sound is okay, if you can hear everybody okay.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some red lights happening, but then often I find that it's quiet. So just let us know if there's any issue hearing anybody. I actually can control that to some degree here, and hopefully you're not hearing the construction too loud. Nothing we can do about that. We can't tell them to stop. Hopefully they'll turn on our water though. So a lot of you just joined, so feel free to ask any questions. Like I said, we set the tone of being on money because of a call I just did recently. So if you have any questions around that, any issues you have, this is a great chance to really, I think what we do in this context best is sort of give you the inner reconciliation perspective on how to work with that and how to kind of get in touch with that and make it something that when you have something going on, that you actually have a useful way of processing it, of dealing with it, of being with it, other than chewing on it. And the one thing I said in the class is, the more charged a subject is, the more you will go into your head in order to avoid the uncomfortable feelings around it.
Right.
And something like money, which has so many layers, is so easy. It's a really convenient one to go into your head because of all of the actual practical things about it. Because you can chew on for hours. Well, should I invest? Well, maybe I should do this. Well, I have all these business ideas. Maybe I could sell this computer I have. There's just an unbelievable amount of places to get stuck. And, the problem with that is if you don't even just give a couple, it doesn't have to take long, like the exercises in that class. If you don't start with some kind of process of getting in touch with those feelings, letting them move, letting it process a bit and just kind of settle, you think that you're thinking productively. But that type of thinking is almost entirely based on not feeling the actual stress that's there around money. So you're not actually going to get very good ideas.
You're not going to get anywhere.
You're not going to follow through with most of those ideas.
There's no fresh inspiration in it because when you rely completely on your mind and not on your feelings, the heart, your inner energy, this incredible machine that you've been given that is like incredibly sensitive and vital, all you're going to be experiencing is memory because that's all the mind can deal with. It doesn't produce anything new. It can receive it, and once it does, it go, oh, this is great, and it can do stuff with it. But it isn't the source of inspiration. So when you're stuck in your mind, all you're going to end up doing is repeating the same things over and over again. It's just the way it is. And every great thinker in history has pretty much said that, whether they be an Indian sage or a physicist. Madame Curie was. She got the solution for. Was it? Which one? What did you? Madame Curie. Yeah, it was. She discovered the radium, the isotope, right? Came to her in a dream. Einstein had a dream of sitting on a light beam. That's where that's where it started. The guy said, "Eureka!" I can't remember the guy's name who figured out how to accurately measure volume sitting in his bathtub. There's something that happens when you do the intellectual work, you lay the groundwork, and then you just kind of let it go, and something magic happens, and suddenly, poof, a fresh idea happens, and it's recognized as being the right thing to do. This is the kind of relationship I wish everybody had with their life. You don't have to be a physicist or a sage. This is available to just us normal folks, and I really want it to be available to you. And this inner reconciliation is how we do it. We just keep bringing you back to what are you feeling about it? What's going on in your body while it's happening? And it really does, besides providing fresh inspiration, it also gets rid of all the traumatic patterns. It gets rid of all the old ideas you had, the assumptions you had about it. It really clears the way so that you can have a really clear relationship with everything in your life, with the people, with your work, with your career, with success, and with money. It's all kind of part of the same boat, or part of the same orchestra, you might say. And we need to get you into the position of leading the orchestra, rather than, you got this huge orchestra and all you're doing is talking to the second violin, which is the mind. And it really is the same. It's not even the first violin.
That not addressing the underlying emotional stuff around money in the moment it's happening that's precisely when you panic sell a stock, buy, fall into somebody giving you like, oh, join this thing that's going to make money, and
run your
rational
credit card up. Yeah.
Without that stress, you could see clearly like this is a terrible idea. But when that emotional stuff is going on, you really do have to start seeing it to some degree. The equivalent of like things you would yell in a fit of rage. I mean, it's not as obvious as that, clearly. But when you start to see that you actually make decisions in a similar way when there's a lot of emotional stuff that's unaddressed, and again, this isn't about making a big project. It's not like, well, you have to join this program for 10 years. It can literally just be a few moments of, but the body awareness and letting the emotions run through and really being present with them, like the exercises we have, as opposed to just just like, okay, I have this bill comes in the mail, and then 100% you go into problem solving, and you don't give it a moment to process the emotional reaction you have. You will be reacting and doing things that are similar to like a drunk person making a bad call, because you are responding. You're responding to the emotional reaction. That's what's driving the bus in that moment.
There was actually a book written a long time ago. It's the same woman who did The Artist's Way, which is very famous.
Oh yeah.
She wrote another book called The Money Drunk.
Oh wow.
and it really was all about that relationship with money. I mean, the thing about it is that without that energetic emotional connection, you're not going to make the right decision.
Right.
The decision you make is going to be nothing more than to try to make this uncomfortable feeling go away. And so it will be more of an anesthetic than an actual choice. And that'll turn out, so temporarily it goes away, and then you find out it was really a stupid thing to do, and you look back and go, oh my God, what was I thinking? And then you beat yourself up, and then the whole cycle starts again. Let's nip it in the bud. Let's go right to the source. You have in you an innate wisdom. Being in touch with your body and your feelings gives you access to that wisdom that the mind can't, because the mind cannot figure wisdom out. It can't figure out what the next note in a song is going to be. It can't figure out what the next thing you should say to somebody you're in love with. It can't figure that stuff out. It comes from a different place. But we're so used to doing it in our minds that we have completely forgotten. We've become completely disconnected from this place from which your natural wisdom actually does flow, and you all have it. We all have it. We've just been trained to not pay attention to it. We've been trained to think really a lot instead. And this whole process is to just take you out of that, back to the place where you just know. I mean, wisdom actually just appears, and you just know. And it feels really good, by the way.
So we have a couple comments and people checking in. And like I said, we do have about an hour and 20 minutes of a class that's on here. So
Yeah.
we don't need to rehash much of that, but we can answer any questions or any particular things around money and inner reconciliation here live. So we do have one, and we have a couple people. Somebody said chopping wood, carrying water. Very nice. Keith from Birmingham, England. Oh, Keith, yeah, good to see you.
Hi, Keith.
Brian in Virginia, a long time buddy of ours.
Yeah.
Judy says the sound is good, which is good. We have a question, and somebody else saying hi from Norfolk, UK, and a question from Arizona. So, if there is a higher feeling before anything you want as a goal, right, and cultivating that feeling is optimal, how do you not become delusional that things are always good when all is falling apart? Okay, is that happening to you? Because if it's not, don't let your mind imagine ways that this won't work. I can't picture you actually doing that. There's nothing in any of these exercises that are even actually their entire purpose is to get you out of the delusional realm of thinking. I'm not saying thinking is inherently delusional, but thinking...
It's close.
Thoughts that are coming from an emotional state that you are ignoring without realizing it, they are an alternate reality. They're something else. They're not rooted in what's happening. So if things are actually falling apart around you, there's nothing about this that's saying, well, just tell yourself it's happy. It's a very direct interaction with your feelings that are here and now.
This isn't positive thinking. We're not saying to go to this place and get these feelings, and then you're going to have all these wonderful thoughts. It actually does happen, but that's not the point. You end up actually having much more of a positive outlook because you're seeing things as they really are. You're not laden with old traumas and fears and assumptions from the past. So you find there's a lot more freedom and a lot more joy and a lot more opportunity in life than you realized there was, simply because your perspective has broadened. And this just isn't delusional. We can verify it through neuropsychology and the like, that it really does happen. There is an opening, a physical opening in the body that allows you to see things you didn't see before, because there's only so much information that we can process. So yes, that stuff happens, but that's not our emphasis. This isn't a feel-good thing. This isn't self-help. This isn't the law of attraction. All of those things happen when you are actually paying attention to yourself. When you're not using the mind to avoid feeling, but the mind is actually being fed and informed by feeling, a very different outcome happens. There's this beautiful rhythm between the head and the heart that takes place that really gives birth to wisdom. It's just the emphasis. I mean, if you're too much in the heart and you don't want to think, you become sentimental and delusional. If you're too much in your head and don't want to feel, you become cold and delusional. I mean, either way you go, it is the balance, it is the flow between the two, where you realize every experience is both understood and felt simultaneously. And when that can happen simultaneously, you experience wisdom. That is what wisdom is. It is the understanding of what's really happening, not just as an idea, but as a felt experience. There's a direct connection between your experience. They call it the direct path. And that's what it means. And it's the end of delusion. We are in a big delusion right now. And that is the end of it, because we're only a delusion because we're cut off to half of us. You got half your body to work with. Yeah, you're going to fall down a lot.
Yeah, and you don't get stuck somewhere as a result of that doesn't really happen by just letting the body doesn't do that naturally, I guess is the best way to say it. So it's not some kind of process that you have to constantly be, okay, am I stuck somewhere? Am I stuck in my head? Am I stuck in... It doesn't do that unless you are latched on to something. So the exercises that are deceptively simple in that class, or any of the inner reconciliation stuff, like the body awareness, they put you in a position where you're really present with what's happening. So you're not running from it. You're not doing any of these tricks to try to avoid it that sound like you're doing a process. Like things that are resistance in disguise. But they put you in a position where you're no longer squeezing things out of shape. You're releasing, meaning just taking that clutching kind of energy off of it and seeing that they do flow naturally, any more than you have to think about how many times to beat your heart. The only way that would be a disaster is if you were the one trying to do it. If you tried to take conscious control of that, you'd be dead before the end of this sentence. So what a lot of this is us trying to be in charge of things that we really shouldn't be. And the core of the issue is the fact that we are trying to take charge of things we shouldn't and not taking responsibility for things that we should.
Right, in the way that we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, perfect. Perfect. That's exactly what happens. You let the body do what the body's doing. You feel it and you honor it for knowing what the hell it's doing because it knows what it's doing. And it's more than just this machine pumping stuff. It's an incredibly sensitive instrument, very sensitive to everything around it. It's stored every event as energetically within you. It knows exactly what happened. You've got some block or self-sabotage. Your body knows why it's there and how to get rid of it, how to free you from it. It knows. We can think about it all day. We can analyze it till the cows come home. And I've known people, 15 years of therapy. They can tell me every experience and what it meant and everything, and they're still messed up. So what's the point of that? You can analyze it, but the body itself and the whole energy of the body is what liberates it. And this is how you do it. You honor it. You give it the attention. You honor it for what it actually is. This incredibly sensitive, incredibly intelligent, sentient machine that is connected to absolutely everything and doesn't miss anything.
Yeah, it can't. It's the thing that's absorbing it. It's absorbing the data way before it gets to your mind, way before it gets to any analysis, way before you label it. It's just instant, real-time response. So what could be better qualified to deal with it?
Yeah. The body receives 60 billion bits of information a second through all of the senses, through everything that's going. I mean, this constant flow of information, change and switch. Your cognitive brain can handle 60 a second. So what happens to that other 59 point whatever billion, right?
Yeah.
It's all being absorbed and processed and sorted and worked with. Think of the incredible wisdom and power that lies in something that can do that. That's what we're hoping to give you access to. So you can realize you don't need to worry about anything. It'll take care of everything except the few things you really do need to do, which is like direct your intention, love, know what you want, care about things. When it needs a decision that isn't immediate, it goes to you. It says, what do you want to do? You need to know how to tell it. Otherwise, it go, all right, well, I'll just kind of fluff around here until you get it straight. These are the things we do need to do. And the entire mechanism can be a means of guiding us towards that, so that the things that we do decide are really coming from our hearts and not coming from a bunch of past trauma or programmed responses. That's where freedom lies.
So as you say it, it's almost like a question to you. It seems to me that the process of putting your attention on the body, I mean, it's obvious because I constantly lead exercises where you do it. But it seems to like that. Like there seems to be some sort of symbiotic relationship that creates almost a positive feedback loop by the fact that your attention is there. It's like not only is it unencumbered, because I guess you could almost think of it like a machine it's always running. I mean, your body never shuts off or we'd all be dead. But your attention and presence kind of moving to it without trying to stick your hands in there and override the system, it does respond very well to that attention. it's a combination of the fact that, first of all the thinking, which is pulling energy away from the
Yep.
machine. If you're worried about something, that is literally taking energy away from this machine that's functioning just fine. But on top of that, there's probably scientists that could give you a reason, but I just know it seems to actually amplify it in a way like an amplifier, basically.
Yep.
Just having it there, just the whole process just becomes way more efficient, and you can actually almost enjoy, well, you literally can enjoy the process of it happening.
Well, if you look at the body as more than just this mindless machine, and see it as a living entity.
Right.
Every cell in your body is, we refer to the cells and their functions like they're little machines. They're living beings. This organism, this 100 trillion cells, evolved over billions of years and started out as a little microscopic single-celled critter floating around in the ocean. And over time, they gathered together, specialized, became more and more complex. But they're still living beings, living in this particular environment. Every living being on the planet responds to attention.
Yes.
Everything
Right.
in the universe. I mean, that's what the quantum guys found out a long time ago, that the observing of an experiment actually affected the outcome of everything is affected by attention. And if your attention towards your body is one of curiosity and, dare I say, love, it's going to be felt. I mean, there was the thing that the Emoto, Dr. Emoto, and the effect of water, of sending various kinds of emotions and putting when he crystallized the water, they had different shapes based on that energy. It was reflecting back the energy towards it. So it's not outrageous to recognize that when you give your attention to your body, it's going to immediately have a positive impact because it wants it. It sounds kind of strange to say that because we're not used to thinking of the body as a living being. We're thinking of it as a thing, right? A thing, and sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, gets in the way, sometimes it's useful. It's not. It's an enormously complex functioning that's turning over all the time, and its mandate is to survive and to serve. I mean, it's there to serve you. It is there to be the vehicle and the instrument of your self-expression. And so the more attention it gets from you, and the more you direct it towards self-expression and away from self-defense, the happier it gets, the healthier it gets, the freer it gets, which of course is what you experience as a happy, healthy, and free life, because you can't do it without your body. It's pretty tough to have a life without your body.
And what happens sometimes is if you turn that into trying to send happy thoughts to it, it can be pretty disconnected. Attention doesn't really require that. Attention is something way more intimate and natural than that. Like if you have a pet, like a cat or something, nobody's like, okay, I'm going to stare at my cat and think, I love you, I love you, I love you. You just kind of, you're with it. You pet it, it starts purring. It's a felt response. So if you approach it that way, as opposed to approaching the body like it's this foreign object and you're just trying to send positive thoughts. There's nothing wrong with that, but just compare it to...
It's a step above sending in horrible thoughts.
For sure. It's definitely way better. But just think about the difference between what it is to be present with a friend or someone you're talking to. Like, you don't have to be trying to send it. The act itself is way more powerful than any thought you could put in.
Sitting on the couch with somebody you love, watching a Netflix movie, and you don't say a word.
It's an energy thing that's happening.
But that presence, the companionship, the appreciation, that energy just communicates itself, and that's what we're just turning it inward. That's really what we're inviting you to do. Turn it towards yourself.
Okay. I believe that if you distance yourself from relying on wanting money to make you happy and focus on centering yourself, so the greater part of you always takes care of your wants. At least that works. Try it. Go even beyond believing it, for sure.
Yes. I always take this one with a grain of salt, because it is true. And there comes a point where you do just kind of rely on the higher power, and it's going to deliver for absolute sure. But the only thing I get cautious about is when somebody tries to kind of sidestep their wants, to not feel their wants.
Right.
That's a problem, because the wanting is as natural to us as the receiving. It is life cannot function without desire. It's the attachment to certain outcomes and not the presence of desire that's the problem. That's what limits us. It's also the fact that a desire arises and we immediately take personal responsibility for it, and it runs into our conditioning and our assumptions, and all of a sudden the desire now can even become painful because there's this underlying belief that I can't have my desire. It can be very, very complex, taking all of that apart, and the spiritual, oftentimes the spiritual approach is to just, I'm going to put desire aside, I'm going to be a monk or something like that, and I'm just going to focus myself on the higher self. It's not going to work, because eventually you'll have to turn around, you'll discover that the desire is still there, and you're going to have to do something with it. Now, of course, if you have experienced some degree of awakening, that process can go a lot smoother. But what I have found is a lot of people have experienced awakening and have been really upset when they turned back and found that their life was still going exactly the way it was. They still had all these desires. They still didn't know what to do with them. It's because they're not a problem.
Right.
The desires are as natural to you as awakening. They're as natural to you as inspiration. In fact, desire arises from the self. It's the first appearance of it. It's like the acorn, what the acorn is to the oak tree. You can't have a fulfillment without a desire. You simply can't. I mean, if you had a fulfillment without desire, it wouldn't mean anything to you. It's like somebody offering you a meal and you're full. You know, it's like, well, thank you very much, but I don't want it, right? There's no fulfillment in it. Right. Desire and fulfillment are two sides of the same coin. When you see that, you see that they are too the functioning of life. And now the sense of giving over to the self taking care of itself and you see the entire picture now, and there's nothing interfering in it. And yes, you can then take your hands off of it and still enjoy the juice of life. You can still enjoy your desires. You can still see them fulfilled. And if a desire comes up and it isn't fulfilled, it doesn't break you. Yeah. Something else will. Because everything has its own life cycle. Desires, think of it as another living being. Every cell in your body has a life cycle. Some last a couple hours, some the longest last 7 years. A desire is like that. It arises, it's got a particular purpose, it may fulfill itself in a second, or it just may die off. It's not up to you to decide. But see everything you're experiencing within the context of the whole. It is all the self. It is all the Christ consciousness. It's all Buddha nature. Nothing is left out of that. So the only focus of a spiritual practice is, am I projecting on the desire something that isn't innate to it? Am I projecting limits on it? Am I projecting a personal responsibility? Am I projecting lack? Mm-hmm. That's where you put your attention, and that's where you begin to dismantle it and find out that the universe really is functioning totally harmoniously. And that is the awakening that hits the heart and your body. Now you're living it and not just having experienced it. I hope that gets to the meat of the question. Whenever I hear anybody spiritually trying to push aside desire, it's when I break out the Zen stick and I want to give them a little whack.
And I don't think you were saying this. I'm just going to use this as a chance to bring up something, because I don't remember if I said it on the class or not. It just made me think of something a little bit. A big thing with inner reconciliation is this thing of taking positions, which will always bite you one way or the other. Yeah. And so some people take this kind of work and turn it into, I don't care about money, I don't want money to be happy, I don't need money to be happy. That's a position that's just as useless as I need money. I depend on money to be happy.
Yes.
Because, do you have that? Just the fact that you would take any stance on it at all is a big clue that something is up, right? Like something you're really just sort of free about. Like, do you say like, I don't need to go to the grocery store to be happy? You just go. You don't even have that kind of. Right. You don't go through it. You don't have any philosophies about it. It's just something that it serves a particular function, and you do it.
Yes.
So you go to the grocery store, you buy what you buy. So there are things in this world, in this particular culture, where money serves a big, very important purpose. And we wouldn't be able to do this if, we never charged for anything. We'd have no camera, we'd have no apartment to broadcast from.
That's right. Be living under a bridge.
So the idea for me with inner reconciliation, as far as not having a position, is just seeing what emotions are there behind any position. Because
Yes.
I don't care about money. Again, this isn't necessarily coming from that question. It just made me think of it. It's just, you're just trying to take another position. It's like, people with they're frustrated with dating. They're like, okay, well, I'm done with men. I hate men, or I'm sick of women. I'm done with it. It's like,
No, you're not.
no, you're not. That's not where you want to be. Like, that's not gonna make you that much happier. It might for a minute to be like, oh, it's nice to not be thinking about that. But then you're thinking about how you're not that.
Yeah, that's not
or how
happiness.
it-
That's just relief.
Yeah. And so really when you're free around something, it just becomes an option. And like any option, it becomes, okay, what's the best? I need this, how do we get it? If you need a cup of coffee, it's like, well, going to Starbucks is probably easier than importing beans myself and learning how to, right?
Growing them.
Yeah, like solutions are everywhere to everything. We just don't necessarily think of it that way. But if you were really in a point of view, like, I will always only make my own food. You get into some like thing, because we all get into things at times. You get into positions like,
You surely do.
I'm only gonna. Okay, see, does that mean you grow it yourself? Like, where does it stop, and at what point is that actually serving you? Versus, if it comes from an honest place, it could be a great thing. I'm only going to grow my own food, but that's a deep.
Oof.
That's the people that do that. They're serious, and they respect the commitment,
Yes.
and that you're free to do that too. That's the
Yeah.
thing about free, but it's not coming from this resentful kind of place. Like, well, I don't need money, because really you're just sick of the whole process. It's not about liberation.
Which
Yeah.
is easy to be sick of the whole process.
Of course.
Yeah. But I could easily argue on either side of that question, and that's that's the whole thing with positions. I could argue you're absolutely right. You do not need money in order to be happiness. As a matter of fact, I teach all the time how to have unconditional happiness. And at the same time, I would also say you need money to be happy. Right. The ultimate awareness, the ultimate happiness depends on money? Absolutely not. But I'm happy doing this. And why am I able to do this? I had the money. We got the microphones, we got the table, we got computer, we got a camera over there, we've got lights, we've got a sitting, we have the time to do it. We're not working the fields, right? So there's a kind of happiness that, the joy of getting something new, right? Buying a new car or buying some new shoes or something, right? That's all. That isn't the ultimate happiness, but it is a happiness. And it is an emotional high, an emotional up and down. So you don't want to take the position that I don't need money to be happy. You see that both sides of those simply represent a position. You see what neither is absolutely true. When you see that neither side is absolutely true, you slip right into what Buddha called the middle way. And you see that something only becomes true when I take a position, and now I have a perception about it. And then you find in this place, you really do need nothing to be happy. You are happiness itself. You don't need anything, and at the same time, you have access to everything and get to experience the full range of happiness, which is a desire fulfilled. That's what happiness is on that level. The ultimate happiness is the complete and total awareness of who you are, that it is infinite, unlimited, and beyond reproach. That's a level of peace. And that peace can experience the happiness of desire and fulfillment. It can experience disappointment, right? Really want this? I'm not getting it. It's disappointing, right? If you really let yourself feel that and feel the disappointment, you're living life. This is the way it's supposed to be. And the two of them are no longer fighting each other. They're actually cooperating in this most beautiful place that's beyond what you could ever express on either side.
Very interesting. We could talk a lot more about that.
Yeah,
but,
we could, but...
But yeah, I mean, of course, follow up with that if there's questions on any more of that, and remember to keep those exercises to, because it's not like you just hear that and then all of your attachment to money and all the emotional stuff around it goes away.
Right.
So you want to keep returning. I mean, I still do it a lot. I've been doing it actually more and more recently, just noticing how many decisions I make are based on some emotional thing around money, like feeling a tightness around buying something that, to say I could afford it would be an understatement. I mean, like something in Manhattan is $5 instead of $3, and I'm like, it's, it's a little much sometimes. The reactions I notice. So things like that, working with that, really powerful. Hi from Mexico. Thanks. Good to be with you. So where was that? GP did a video where he led us in a meditation where we are in a state where nothing is missing. That sounds like saying everything is okay and nothing matters, but isn't that delusion? So I'll say, did you experience, when you did that exercise, did you experience delusion, and are you now walking around thinking that nothing matters? Because if not, there's no problem, right? It's you're inventing a question. So be careful with that, because if you're not experiencing, if you don't think that nothing matters, and if you're not walking around delusional, you don't have to worry about that happening. If you start to feel like, okay, I'm doing inner reconciliation and I'm starting to feel like nothing matters in life, then we definitely have a lot to discuss and a lot to work with there. But
and it's a reactive pattern.
Yes.
Right. It's the emotional system in the mind just trying to flip sides because, well, if that's not true, well, then this must be true, because it doesn't get the idea that neither side is either true or false. It's just a position. And when I do that exercise, I want to take you to a place where you actually feel nothing is missing and you recognize nothing is missing. That energy brought out into your life doesn't make things not matter. It actually makes them matter more because they become more precious. They're an expression of what's not missing. Now, they're not the fulfillment of what's missing. They're an expression of your fullness. It's a very different way of approaching life. When you're in the expressive mode, you're not doing your work for the world so you can get something back. You're doing it to give because there's such a feeling of completeness that you know things are going to come back as you need them. And it's a very warm and loving state to be in. It actually makes you more compassionate, not discompassionate. It makes you more tender. It makes you more slow to anger and patient. Simply because you are coming from a place of no lack, dealing with a world that is based completely on the belief in lack. That doesn't mean it's suddenly going to vaporize, and it does matter. It's actually a big difference in the Buddhist tradition. The Bodhisattva was regarded as the highest attainment, especially in Zen Buddhism, because the lesser paths were those who were seeking awakening, seeking enlightenment for their own, to go into nirvana, and that was it. They were good. The Bodhisattva, though, with the enlightenment came this incredible desire to alleviate suffering for all beings. And that's regarded as the highest. It was not I'm okay now. It's like, I'm okay, everybody needs to be okay. And they just keep coming back. The Dalai Lama is the 14th incarnation of the Dalai Lama. He keeps coming back. Why? To save all beings from suffering. They want us all to go together. It's a very big bus, and it's not like I'm going to go to heaven by myself. Imagine going to heaven knowing that people you hold dear and love are suffering. God would have to do a lobotomy on you in order to make you happy there. I wouldn't be happy. I don't care how wonderful it is. The people, I want to share it with the people I love, and they're not here, and they're suffering. I'm out of here. Put me where they are, and let me try to get them here. I mean, it's perfectly natural. That's the real insight that happens from that. But in a process like that, the first thing I have to do is bring you to a place where you see that there's really nothing lacking. Now you can recognize that lack isn't a true state, it is a true reality. It is a state of mind. It is a perception. It itself is a position that you take. When you see that it is just that, you can begin to let go of it, which empowers you to alleviate it and eliminate it in your life in real practical ways. Not just a theoretical, well, it doesn't matter, I already know there's no such thing as lack, so I don't care. In the meantime, you're struggling to pay your bills. Right? Those are inconsistent. This truth has to be lived. And that's how you begin to find that nothing's missing here. Nothing is missing anywhere except that we believe it is. That's our delusion. But that perception that nothing is missing has to work its way through all of it, through all of the material that believes otherwise, for yourself and everybody you touch in your life. I hope that explains it, because it's very subtle and it's very important. And many, 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 many people on the non-dual spiritual track get stuck there.
It certainly makes it easier for things not to be all about you anymore, too.
Oh God, yes.
Because when you finally,
I'm really annoying.
when you finally, if there's a knife stuck in your hand, that's the whole universe.
Yes.
Nothing, starving children, none of it is in your presence,
Yes.
right? It's just, this is dominating. So when your own suffering is like that, there's an idea, only from that place, I think, will your mind be able to trick you into, well, won't this just make me delusional and apathetic? No, you can, if anything, you can more clearly see where your services are needed in the world, right? I mean, anybody listening to this, or anybody in the world, in my opinion, has really important things to offer, or they wouldn't exist. And so when the more free you are around, the more you're living from that state. I mean, the point of an exercise like that is to show you that that state of being is available, so that you don't spend 40 years chasing money and cars and women and other emotional states just to feel that, which is the
Right.
state of a lot of things. Meanwhile, you are much more badly needed, I would imagine, doing lots of other important things.
Plus, when you do that, when you're chasing the money and all that to fill up some emotional state, you don't actually get to experience the joy of having the money, the women, right? Because they're serving a purpose that they can't serve. Mm-hmm. But when this is filled up, then suddenly the car's fun. The car fulfills you don't expect from it anything other than what it can give. And therefore, the car's a pure joy. Right? Now it's not building your status anymore, your esteem. You're just liking the car, and it smells good, and it's fast, and it buzzes around, whatever the characteristics.
Can enjoy it,
Now you can enjoy it as it actually is. It can deliver what happiness to you that it can, because the thing you were hoping it would do has been satisfied by the only thing that can satisfy it, and that's this deep recognition of our true nature.
So we have a question that asks, are you apolitical? GP definitely isn't. I'm more so, but I would say these types of, inner reconciliation, the process of it is certainly apolitical.
Right.
And for the purposes of this, I do. I think you probably feel the same way, but maybe not. So, although you bring this up in classes and stuff, your political stances. Yeah. I just try to keep the inner work part of it as what it is, because that to me is pretty universal. I mean, anybody who's holding a position, political, to personal, to certain just feelings about anything really, is the way we work with that is the same. Whether your internal feelings are one of you're beating up on yourself, or you hate Democrats, and in whichever one of those it is, and it's not like anybody is just one of those things, but it's taking the same toll. And I think even if your political ideology is driven by a lot of I mean, I think anger actually could be useful. It has been useful historically for people saying this is unjust, this isn't fair, this isn't right, and using that. But I think this process, you don't lose your effectiveness. I think you could only gain your effectiveness, even if you're somebody who's really drawn not only to politics but actually running for something, or you want to be mayor, or you want to be president. The more adept you are with welcoming feelings, welcoming opposing feelings, which is a big part of what inner reconciliation is. I mean, that's why we call it a reconciliation, because inside of you are multiple opposing viewpoints. Part of you really wants money. Part of you might be thinking money is all evil, and I shouldn't want it. And that internal position is as useless internally as it is with warring factions. Warring factions that will not yield an inch ever. So that's about as political as I take it in terms of, I have some views, but I now can have conversations with people who are completely on the other end of the spectrum with me, and I can talk to them like a human being and not just see them as, you're an idiot because you believe this and you have no value, which happens,
That's
very toxic.
That's what the media has done. Has turned it into that. No, I'm not apolitical, but it's a beautiful way to. It's a beautiful place to actually explore, because whenever you take a position, take any position at all. When I went through a big mind training with Genpo Roshi, he did a really fun thing, and he took half the room. Divided the room in half, and one half of the room that you become the Democrat, right? Even if you weren't, you're Democrat. You take the Democratic position, and then the Republicans on the other side. And then he had all the Democrats tell the Republicans what they thought of them, and even people who were Republicans, who were just taking the role of the Democrat, they got into it. They actually got into that position and what they were saying, and then they had to do the opposite. And then he had them switch sides. Had us all switch sides. And we took the opposite position. Like 15 minutes later, same amount of emotion, same amount of everything came up, and you realize it's just a position. And we're all arguing about the truth of the position. My ultimate political ideal is to transcend those positions to get at the heart of what humanity needs. And my political views are simply, whatever I hear of you that's closest to that ideal, I support it. And whenever I hear that contradicts that, I will criticize it. But the real idea is, what is it that humanity needs? We want to be happy, we want to be safe, we want to be loved, we want to have relationship. There's some basic things that if we agreed on them, we could easily fulfill them. But all the fighting and the positioning we take has made it almost impossible for the basic needs of humanity to be taken care of. That's my energy behind it. So it isn't, I don't even condemn any particular point of view or any politics. I always weigh it against the higher standard of what is the best for humanity in general. What is the closest to home in terms of both spiritual and personal freedom of expression, and a feeling of being safe, and a feeling of being cared for, and a feeling of being able to expand and grow. These are just so essential to the human being, and we're so lost when it doesn't. When we are just stuck in survival mode, our lives are drab. We don't like it. It's like, it's uncomfortable, and yet that's consistently where we end up, because we have not realized that I'm only holding a position, and this position isn't true. By definition, it's not true. It isn't the whole thing. And the harder I hold on to it, the more violent I'll get, the more warlike I'll get, just to maintain the position. The secret to ending all of the conflict in the world and having a politics that works is to recognize that it is only a position. And that's where inner reconciliation, which is resolving the conflicting energies within us, explodes out into the world, because it can resolve the differences between various viewpoints when you come together on common ground and recognize they're just positions, and eventually find the place that we're all trying to get to. That will solve the problem. So I'm not apolitical, but I'm not really political. I just see it as a means to what for me is a much higher end.
I mean, I will say that anytime you feel threatened, if your system, your body, everything is in a position of feeling like it's unsafe, even if that's from an imaginary future or imaginary concept, you are highly susceptible and are capable of doing really stupid and dangerous things.
Yes.
Because in a way you're supposed to be, right? Like it's
Yeah.
designed to be able. You might not be a violent person, but in a certain moment, if a bear is chasing you, you might need to do something violent.
Yes.
So the body's capable of doing these types of things. Now, if you are constantly being fed things that are meant to keep you in that state, it's very easy then to say, well, this group is causing it, or this people from this country are the reason
Yes.
this is happening. And you're in a heightened state of threat and very eager. The mind obviously that's what inner reconciliation is all about. The mind is designed to quickly label and kind of break things down to their most abstracted way. So you get an entire person with an entire upbringing and a history, and they may have had abusive parents, or their parents may have been directly related to Einstein, or anything, and you're like, oh, that's just a German guy. He's like
Right.
this, or that's an Irish woman. So it's like the mind is capable. It's actually meant to do that.
Yeah.
So it's a very dangerous thing to let people influence.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Because we can be. If we're the only time, I mean, this has been shown study after study, and going back to Maslow, the only time human beings actually get violent is when their existence is threatened. Other than that, if we have a baseline of safety and security, we are not violent. We don't do violence. We cooperate. Only when something gets to the point where me and my family our existence is threatened will that come out of the bag, and that's simply life. That's the way life works. Right? I mean, that is what every critter on the planet will do when it's threatened. It'll do whatever it has to do to survive. We have this wonderful thing called consciousness, though, which allows us to go beyond it. We can actually transcend that, and we do have the technology, the distribution systems, and the knowledge to be able to guarantee that level of safety and survival to every creature on the planet, not just humans, to every creature. Moreover, as far as I've read studies that say that the Earth is actually capable of supporting 30 trillion people, if you can imagine that. That the system is so robust if we are intelligently using it. But of course we're not. Instead, we're killing the goose that laid the golden eggs because we have no concept, and we're taking positions. And I can go on about this for a while. It's not really politics. What's happened is that there's a very deep thing going on, and that is our energies, our nervous system, our bodies are still responding to the world as if we were still walking around and life was very uncertain, right? We're acting, for millions of years we evolved in an environment where we were not the top of the food chain. We were actually fourth. According to the African tribes, the elephant was the top of the food chain, then the lion, then the anaconda, and then humans.
Yeah, if we go up against a lion,
before
the technology we have now,
exactly,
you're going to lose.
You're going to lose. Yeah, I mean, you're done. Even some little snakes can do you in, right? Yeah. Even though they're not going to eat you, you're not prey for them. But we were prey for those others, right? Not the elephants because they're vegetarians. So we learned from them, hopefully. But that energy, the nervous system is text messaging us. This is really dangerous, even when it isn't, because it's living. Our nervous systems are living in a very different world than we are, and we haven't caught up yet. And our politics are still reflecting that. Our culture is still reflecting that. I mean, you look around, you're still acting as if we are in the jungle, and we're not. And that's the message that's finally got to sink in. And then we will build a beautiful, powerful, wealthy, equitable world that works for all of us and takes care of this remarkably regenerative system that we've been given, which is, as remarkably regenerative as the body.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions, so speak now or end the stream, I would say.
Yeah.
I have found out that money is not happiness after I've been stolen, and that made me found out our true nature, which is peace, even though money is not there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing when that happens.
Yeah.
I think I told this maybe on the last one, but just real quick, when I had something happen to my back where I was laid out flat and really in a lot of pain and could barely move, and found that the same level of peace and happiness that was there when I would meditate or do what we're talking about here was not diminished 1 inch. It's just exactly the same. I mean, it's just there with a hurting body.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could have a smile on my face during it. I could see that this is okay. This is something's going on here. It hurts and it's going to be repaired, and actually repaired way fast.
Yeah.
Partly because I just didn't feel in a lot of resistance to it and just sort of was listening and responding. But yeah, it is kind of an amazing thing. And to kind of address earlier points, that doesn't make you go, screw it, so I won't stretch. I'll just let the body hurt. You're just naturally going to take care of it.
Right.
You're going to take care of it a lot more efficiently because you're not freaking out about it.
And eventually, and not this time, but the next course I'm doing is called The Money Body, and it's about the natural flow of money and sustenance. But you're absolutely right. Your happiness does not depend on any external condition. Now, don't turn that into a position where you say the external conditions don't matter. That's not true. They do. Not absolutely, but relatively they do. And your emotions will be reacting to those. But you'll also notice, going deeper into that even the ups and downs of your emotions do not affect that fundamental happiness. That fundamental, and I think probably a better way of putting it is peace. There's just this quiet underneath the entire thing. And we maybe use happiness for just kind of emotional highs and the like. Right? Because it's an emotional high. When you're doing things that are really fun, there's an emotional high. But it's going to come and go. But this doesn't come and go. Right. This is what experiences those. So we're not trying to deny the experience. We want life to be juicy and full. But we're just not dependent on it anymore. It is not the source of our happiness. And that is what gives you the freedom to fully experience it, all the juice of it, and because it does not really affect who you are. And this life will even end, and it won't affect who you are. It won't affect any of that at all. You'll just be, wow, that was a great ride. I like that. So.
Okay, everyone. Well, like I said, I don't see any more questions, so you can get the free course that kind of takes you through inner reconciliation at innerreconciliation.com. The money class that we've been referencing at times during this is just on the YouTube channel. It's just a video there. Mm-hmm. It's probably the most recent one before this.
That one's free.
That's free. Yeah, it's just a video on the YouTube channel. Yeah, you don't have to do anything except go to the channel
and watch it.
Yeah, leave a comment if you have any questions there. We do
see those.
Please
comment and share. Comment and share.
Helps us a lot.
Helps us. It helps us a lot. And the one at the end of the month that I'm going to be doing is paid, but it's like $30. We're just charging enough to cover the expenses and like, and we'll be going more in depth. And I'm planning something even bigger for later on. So stay tuned.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.